Marry me, Noah. I only have 7 days left.
Why now?
Because after I die, my brother will come for everything, and only my husband can stop him.
The morning after my wife died, her brother looked me in the eye and said, "Enjoy the funeral, Noah. By next week, you'll be homeless." 3 days later, her lawyer opened a sealed envelope, and every person in that room learned why Claire had insisted on marrying me with only 7 days left to live. Hello, my name is Noah Bennett. I'm 42 years old, and until last winter, I restored old houses in a small town outside Boston. I understood cracked foundations, hidden rot, and walls that looked strong until you touched them. What I did not understand was that families could be built the same way. I met Claire Whitmore 2 years before she died. She walked into the Historical Society, carrying a cardboard box of photographs, and an expression that said she had already argued with 3 people that morning and was ready for a 4th. She wanted help identifying a burned down textile mill in one of the photographs. I knew the building because my grandfather had worked there. We spent 3 hours together that afternoon. Claire was funny without trying, stubborn without apology, and strangely careful about making promises. When I asked her to dinner, she said, "I can give you Thursday. I don't make plans too far ahead." I thought she was joking. On our 3rd date, she told me the truth. Claire had a rare autoimmune disease that was attacking her lungs and heart. Treatments had slowed it, but no doctor would promise her a future. Her wealthy family knew about the illness, but they treated it like an embarrassing accounting problem. Her father had died years earlier. Her mother, Evelyn, controlled the family foundation, and her older brother, Adrian, controlled almost everything else. "If this is too much," Claire said, "leave now." I told her, "I'm not asking how the story ends. I'm asking whether I can be in it." For almost 2 years, we built a quiet life. We cooked badly, argued about paint colors, and drove to the ocean whenever her breathing allowed it. Claire owned a beautiful but neglected estate called Hawthorne House, inherited from her grandmother. Adrian wanted it sold to a developer. Claire wanted it turned into a residential center for women escaping financial abuse. That dream was the one subject that could make her forget she was sick. Then, in November, her condition collapsed. A specialist at Massachusetts General told us she likely had weeks, not months. Claire listened calmly. In the parking garage, she gripped my coat and cried so hard she could barely breathe. I held her until the concrete floor turned cold beneath my knees. 2 days later, she asked me to marry her. I thought grief had made her impulsive. We had discussed marriage before, but she always refused. She said she did not want me trapped in hospital debt or dragged into a war with her family. Now she sat in her bed, oxygen line beneath her nose, and said, "7 days from now, I need you to say yes." "Why now?" I asked. "Because I love you." That was true last month. Her eyes filled with fear. "Noah, please trust me once without understanding everything." I said yes. The reaction from her family was immediate. Adrian arrived at the hospital with his attorney and accused me of manipulating a dying woman. Evelyn stood beside him, silent and pale. Adrian demanded a psychiatric evaluation, then tried to have me removed from Claire's room. Claire pulled off her oxygen mask long enough to say, "Touch him, and I cancel every donation your company receives from my foundation." Adrian backed away, but the hatred in his face stayed. The wedding took place in Hawthorne House's glass conservatory. There were 12 guests, white winter roses, and snow gathering against the windows. Claire wore her grandmother's ivory dress, altered so she could sit comfortably. I wore the blue tie she had given me on our first Christmas. When the officiant asked whether I took her as my wife, my voice broke. Claire squeezed my hand. "Say it clearly," she whispered. "I want the whole house to hear." "I do," I said. She smiled. For 10 seconds, illness disappeared from her face. After the ceremony, Adrian cornered me near the staircase. "Whatever she promised you," he said, "you won't keep it. Her trust protects the family assets. Marriage changes nothing." "I didn't marry an asset." He leaned closer. "Everyone says that before the will is read." That night, Claire asked me to carry her through every room of Hawthorne House. The building had been empty for years, but she remembered it as a child music in the ballroom, cinnamon in the kitchen, her grandmother reading by the library fire. In the library, she pointed to a carved wooden bird above the fireplace. "If anything feels wrong after I'm gone," she said, "remember the wren." I asked what she meant. She kissed my cheek. "Not yet." 6 days after our wedding, Claire died before sunrise with her hand inside mine. The last thing she said was, "Make them tell the truth." At the funeral, Adrian behaved like a man taking inventory. He spoke to donors, attorneys, and board members. He barely looked at his sister's coffin. After the burial, he told me Hawthorne House belonged to the Whitmore Family Trust and that I had 72 hours to remove my belongings. That was when he promised I would be homeless. I was too exhausted to fight. I returned to the house, packed one suitcase, and sat alone in the library. Snow struck the windows. The place felt enormous without Claire. Then I remembered the wren. The carved bird above the fireplace looked decorative, but one wing moved when I pressed it. A narrow compartment opened behind the wood panel. Inside was a brass key, a flash drive, and a note in Claire's handwriting: "Noah, do not trust the first will. Give the key to Miriam Cole. Watch the drive only with her present." Miriam was Claire's personal attorney. When I called, she went silent, then told me to come to her office through the parking garage and not tell anyone. She locked the conference room door before inserting the flash drive. Claire appeared on the screen wearing the sweater she had worn the day she proposed. "If you are watching this," she said, "I am gone, and Adrian has moved faster than I hoped." She explained that 3 months earlier, she had discovered irregular transfers from the Whitmore Foundation. Millions of dollars meant for shelters, clinics, and scholarships had been routed through consulting companies controlled by Adrian. When she confronted him, he claimed the payments were legal. Soon afterward, someone began pressuring her doctors for confidential information and telling foundation board members she lacked mental capacity. Claire feared Adrian would challenge any will she signed while visibly ill. He had already arranged for an older document to surface, one that left her voting shares and Hawthorne House under his control. "The wedding was not about giving Noah my money." Video, Claire said. "It was about giving him legal standing Adrian could not quietly erase." Miriam paused the recording. "A's her surviving spouse," she explained. "You can challenge the false will, demand estate records, and prevent Adrian from closing the trust before we investigate. Without the marriage, he could have buried this in probate before anyone outside the family noticed." My stomach turned. Claire had not married me because she doubted my love. She married me because she knew her death would start a war, and she needed someone Adrian could not buy. The brass key opened a safe deposit box. Inside were notarized statements, bank records, copies of emails, and a newer will. That will did not leave me a fortune. Claire had been careful. I received our small shared savings, her personal belongings, and the right to live at Hawthorne House while the charity was established. The estate itself would fund the refuge she dreamed about. There was one more document, an affidavit from Evelyn. Claire's mother admitted she had seen Adrian forge Claire's signature on foundation authorizations. She also admitted he had threatened to expose old tax violations that could implicate her unless she supported him. "Why didn't Evelyn go to the police?" I asked. Miriam looked tired. "Fear, shame. And families like this often confuse silence with loyalty." The next morning, Adrian filed the old will with the probate court. He also released a statement portraying me as a desperate contractor who had seduced a vulnerable heiress. Local reporters parked outside my workshop. 2 clients canceled projects. Anonymous messages called me a grave robber. For the first time, I understood his strategy. He did not need to win in court immediately. He only needed to destroy me before I could afford to fight. I nearly surrendered. Then a courier delivered a wedding photograph Claire had arranged to be sent after her death. On the back she had written, "A foundation survives only when someone refuses to ignore the cracks." I called Miriam and said, "File everything." We challenged Adrian's will, froze major estate transfers, and petitioned for a forensic audit of the foundation. Adrian responded by producing a medical consultant who claimed Claire had been confused during her final week. But Claire had anticipated that too. Every day before the wedding, she had completed recorded capacity evaluations with 2 independent physicians. She answered questions about her property, family wishes, and the consequences of marriage. She was weak, but unmistakably clear. At the preliminary hearing, Adrian's attorney described the recordings as theatrical. Then Miriam played a final section no one had seen. The doctor asked Claire why she trusted me. She answered, "Because Noah is the only person in my life who never asked what my name could buy him." I had to look down so the courtroom would not see me cry. The judge upheld the marriage's validity and ordered Adrian to preserve every foundation record. That should have been enough to make him cautious. Instead, it made him desperate. 2 nights later, someone broke into Hawthorne House. I woke to glass shattering downstairs. By the time I reached the library, a hooded man was pulling at the wooden panel behind the wren. He fled through the conservatory before police arrived. Nothing valuable was taken because the evidence was already with federal investigators. But the intruder dropped a phone. The device contained a message from Adrian's head of security: "Find the originals before Bennett's hearing." Adrian claimed the phone had been planted. Then his security chief asked for immunity. The investigation widened. Auditors found shell companies, fabricated invoices, and donations redirected into luxury properties. Worse, one email showed Adrian asking a hospital administrator whether Claire could be declared incompetent before signing. Anything inconvenient. Another message ordered staff to prepare the old will for immediate filing upon death. The betrayal went beyond money. Adrian had spent his sister's final months waiting for her silence. Evelyn finally agreed to testify. She met me before the main hearing in the empty courthouse corridor. She looked 20 years older than she had at the wedding. "Claire asked me to be brave," she said. "I told her keeping the family together mattered more. And now I know there was no family to save, only Adrian's control." She handed me Claire's childhood diary. On the last page, Claire had added a recent note: "If Mother tells the truth, forgive her. If she does not, protect the work anyway." I did not promise forgiveness. Some wounds need time before they can become anything else. But I promised the work would survive. The final will hearing drew cameras because the foundation's donors demanded answers. Adrian arrived in a dark suit, smiling as if confidence could replace evidence. His attorney argued that Claire's marriage was a scheme designed by Miriam and me to seize the estate. Miriam stood and asked permission to play Claire's complete final video. On the screen, Claire explained the stolen funds, the threats, and the reason for every safeguard. Then she looked directly into the camera. "Adrian," she said, "you always believed love made people weak. You were wrong. Love made Noah stay when leaving would have been easier. Love made my mother find the courage you spent years taking from her. And love gave me a reason to make sure you could never use my death as your promotion." The courtroom was silent. Miriam introduced the bank records. Evelyn authenticated her affidavit. The security chief testified about the break-in. The independent doctors confirmed Claire's mental capacity. The judge rejected the old will, accepted Claire's final will, removed Adrian as a foundation officer, and referred evidence of fraud, forgery, witness intimidation, and attempted evidence theft to prosecutors. Adrian's smile disappeared only once, when the judge ordered him to repay the foundation from his personal assets. Months later, he pleaded guilty to multiple financial crimes. His properties were sold. His name was removed from the foundation. The newspapers that had called me a fortune hunter printed corrections, though none of them felt large enough to erase what they had done. I did not become rich. That surprised people. Claire's will gave almost everything to the mission she had chosen. Hawthorne House was renovated into a transitional residence called Claire's Harbor. It now has 12 private rooms, legal counseling offices, a childcare wing, and a workshop where residents can learn practical trades. I supervised the restoration myself. On opening day, Evelyn came quietly and stood at the back. She had resigned from the foundation and sold her jewelry to fund the childcare wing. We were not family in the easy sense. Maybe we never would be. But when the first residents entered, she reached for my hand, and I let her hold it. After everyone left, I went to the library. The carved rune still rested above the fireplace. Beneath it, we installed a small brass plaque containing one sentence from Claire's will: "Let this house belong to people who have been told they have nowhere else to go." Sometimes I still replay our wedding in my mind. I used to think Claire had robbed me of the truth by not explaining everything before the ceremony. For a while, that secrecy hurt almost as much as losing her, but eventually I understood. She was not using me as a weapon. She was giving me a choice without burdening our final days with fear. She knew that once I learned the truth, I could still walk away. The will did not command me to fight. It simply opened the door. I chose to walk through it. Adrien believed marriage was a loophole Claire used to defeat him. He never understood that the ceremony itself was not the trap. The trap was his certainty that everyone could be frightened, purchased, or erased. Claire proved him wrong in the last week of her life. She married me so I would have a voice after hers was gone, and when I finally used it, I did not inherit her fortune. I inherited her unfinished promise. That was worth more than every dollar Adrien stole, and it became the one thing he could never take back.